Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get Into It with Gila. I'm Gila Glassberg, registered dietitian and certified intuitive eating counselor. And today I have Alyssa Goldwater. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Sure. Thanks for coming on. How you doing?
Baruch Hashem, doing good.
Okay, good. Tell us who you are. Where do you live? What do you do?
Okay, so I'm Alyssa Goldwater. I'm a mom, wife, and digital influencer, mostly on Instagram. My handle is at Alyssa Goldwater. I'm a real mom and lifestyle blogger. So I talk about all things from mom life to mental health. My son has type 1 diabetes, so I'm a support there. And I talk a lot about plus size modest fashion as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so was that where you saw yourself like when you were a kid? Did you see yourself doing this? Like, how did that happen?
No, in the 90s, influencer wasn't even a word. So that was definitely not, this is not where I saw myself. I definitely knew I always wanted to be a mom, and I wasn't sure what else I wanted to do. So when I came home from Israel and my father said, "You must get a job," I got a job working for NCSY, and I did that for 5 years. And in the meantime, I got married and had 2 kids and started posting on Instagram as a creative outlet. Mm-hmm. And more people started following me. I talk in a very sarcastic, humorous, witty sort of way. And I think people really resonate with that and enjoy it. So more people started following, brands started reaching out to me, just for free stuff at first. And then eventually I started getting paid a little bit to do this fun thing that I thought was just a hobby. And 3 years ago, I left my full-time job at NCSY, and now I do Instagram as my full-time job, and it's amazing. And wow. I'm very fortunate to be able to do something that is like a creative outlet for me and also make money for my family. So
that's awesome. That's amazing. So where are you originally from?
Well, I'm from Kentucky.
Yes, I knew you had some sort of an accent. The other day I heard it on your Instagram, no?
Yeah, when I was high.
Oh, yes, when you were high, yes.
From my anesthesia.
I was like, oh my God, she has a Southern, is that Southern? I don't even know.
You're not the only person that said that. They're like, I hear your Kentucky coming out. Yeah, when I'm drunk or apparently high on anesthesia, my Kentucky truly comes out.
Do you hide? Do you think that you like subconsciously like hide it because you don't live there anymore, or like
I'm not sure. I actually really like my Southern accent. It just sometimes a little twang will come out like normally, and I say y'all, but I don't know. It's just my parents weren't from Kentucky, so it's not like that's what I was hearing all day at home. My parents are from the Northeast, so but I'm from Kentucky. And I didn't grow up as an Orthodox Jew. I grew up conservative Reform. And then in college, I discovered the Aish couple on campus at Indiana University and told them I was not interested in any of their religious programming, but I wanted to babysit their children. They said, great. A few months later, I ended up going on birthright with them, and that being in Israel was sort of the tip of the iceberg. And now I've been religious for almost 10 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You were like, were you anti-religious? Were you not interested in becoming religious because did you not want them to try to make you religious? Like,
I just like wasn't interested in any of their classes they were offering. I just don't really have the attention. I don't go to Shiurim often now either. It has to be a really, attention grabbing speaker, because I just can't sit through it. I never in school, I never paid attention. I just sort of, thank God I'm a smart person and can I could get by and get good grades without paying attention.
Yeah, that's very lucky. I didn't pay attention.
Don't try this at home.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention, but I didn't get good grades. So I have the other side of that. Anyways, okay, so you grew up in Kentucky. You went to college there, Indiana.
I went to Indiana
I
University.
don't know where that is. I have
In-
no concept.
Kentucky is here, Indiana is here, and Illinois is here. So I grew up in the top of Kentucky.
I'm very visual. Thank you.
And I went to college like here, and now I live like here.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. That was so nice. That was so nice.
I mean, it wasn't perfect by any stretch
but
of
you're
the
a mom. I could tell you're a
imagination.
mom because you're like, okay, you're not getting what I'm saying, so I have to show you.
Yeah.
It's funny, totally on a tangent, but like I'm such a visual learner, and for sure some of my kids are like that. And it's like, if only schools would get that, like everyone learns so differently that like it's important to know your audience.
Also,
Okay.
I promise I keep kosher. This is just a Diet Coke.
Okay, people were like worried, you know, like they were
It
gonna.
just hits better from Chick-fil-A. Okay, guys.
I hear that. I totally hear that.
It's the ice. They've got the good ice there.
You have an ice maker?
I don't, because we don't have room for it.
You need to get one.
I know. When one day we're going to redo the house and there's going to be a dedicated space for the ice maker.
I get it. I'm very into the ice. We have an ice maker. It's not the good ice, but it's ice. So
I mean, we've got ice. It's just totally not the good ice.
But is it an ice maker ice?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I hear what you're saying.
I mean, I'm not using molds all day, every day.
I mean, I did like up until like.
So did we. It was
right.
Horrible.
Right. But you're an ice
ice
person. Yes. My in-laws, I'm really sorry. I hope I'm not offending them. They don't drink ice. So they try to always have in the house. Like they buy the ice in the bags.
In the bags. You can buy the good ice in the bag, by the way.
Yes. It's just, they're like, oh, we don't have ice. I'm like, I need ice. I like live for ice. It's really
I can't drink things without ice.
Yes. But they think that it dilutes the drink.
It doesn't bother me.
Me neither. I have my ice right here.
I just need, and water, I need ice and ice and ice and ice.
Totally.
Yeah.
We get each other. Okay. So when you went to college, did you go for any specific degree? Like, did you have anything in mind that you wanted to pursue?
I tried out like 3 different things while I was there. One semester I went for social work. Then I decided not to pursue that. Then I switched to early childhood education, which is where I had sort of always thought I would end up being a teacher. Now, as a mom, I don't like other people's children, so I'm glad that I'm not a Mora, a teacher.
I hear that. Totally.
You know, I have my few like of my best friends' kids that I love like my own, and that is the extent of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have the patience to be a teacher anymore. But so I did that for a while. And then I ended up just getting a minor in psychology and a bachelor of general studies.
So you just didn't know. You didn't know.
No, I didn't know. I would have stayed in education, but I wanted to I started education late, and it's a very specific track at Indiana. So I was going to end up being there an extra semester. And by that point, I was Shomer Shabbos, Shomer Kashrus, and I needed to get out of there and go to Israel. So I just did whatever I could to get out of there on time in my 4 years. And that's what it was. And I never needed that degree. And listen, I'm glad I went to college. I'm glad I can say that I have a college degree, but I don't remember anything I learned. The only thing I remember are like from creating projects and teaching reading in my early childhood classes. That is literally all I remember.
Yes,
everything that I have built as my business now has been from learning on the job and learning from others and taking like a few courses in the general area of like social media. But now at colleges, they do offer social media management degrees, social media marketing degrees. But it's totally not necessary. Although I think it could help. It could help.
It probably would help you. I mean, or would help me because I don't know
to understand analytics a little bit better, SEO, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't available when I was there. So
right. So you went to so this couple, you became close with them, and they, I guess maybe it was like strategically didn't push, but you got to know them and you were close to them, and then you went on a birthright trip with them to Israel.
Yeah.
And that sort of inspired you to say like, okay, I want to learn more about Judaism.
Yeah. So it was like going to the hotel, and there is really something like magical about being at the hotel. And they ran their trip through Israel Free Spirit Birthright, which is like an Orthodox provider.
Mhm.
So the madrichot on the trip, like the counselors on the trip were these Orthodox Jewish women who were single, like, in their 20s, not married. And it was in Israel in the middle of the summer, and they were dressed so cute, but like they were so covered.
Mhm.
And, they didn't touch the boys on our trip. And I was so confused, but I really liked them. Like I had a very close connection with one of them. We spent like the entire trip together, and just asking her questions and like hearing her answers about why she does certain things. And, based on the college career that I had thus far, I was the vice president of my sorority at this time.
Mhm.
So
I don't really know what that means, only from movies. So if you want to explain it to us, like no concept, zero
okay,
concept.
so a sorority is like an exclusive club for women. And you do this thing called Rush, where you go around and basically interview and try and get them to like you and let you in. And it's like a sisterhood. You
Mhm.
live in a big mansion together.
That sounds
Um,
fun.
and it's so much fun. There's organized programming, and so being vice president, I helped organize like all the sisterhood programming, and I helped like run the house. There's a house mother, like an actual adult. And there's a kitchen, you eat all your meals there, like they cook for you. It's definitely not cheap to be in a sorority, but it's like an alternative to living in a dorm for another year or renting an apartment.
It's only in
Um,
your senior year?
no, so it's
Oh.
you rush your freshman year, and then
Mhm.
you can live in the house starting your sophomore year.
Got
So
it.
I lived in the house my sophomore and junior year, and then senior year, you like get an apartment outside of the house, like with your sorority sisters.
Cool.
So it's basically like uh, a for
Club?
sure group of friends
Uh-huh.
with activities, like with a social agenda that like is always going.
Is it very exclusive?
I mean, some of them are, and they all have what's it called? Oh my gosh. There's like a stereotype for every different sorority. I was in a Jewish sorority. There were two on campus because Indiana is a very heavy Jewish population, obviously not religious, but a lot of people identify as Jewish and are very like culturally Jewish there. So that was a step in the right direction.
Mhm.
Actually, one of the madrichot on my birthright trip was in my sorority, and she became religious, and I always thought of her as like that weird girl that became religious, and then
Yeah.
I became that weird girl that became religious.
Yeah, totally. If you're not like, yes, I could relate to that, even though I grew up from, I didn't grow up, I guess, how I am now. So like
Yeah,
when I was a teenager, I was like, wow, those people are really crazy, and
yeah,
then like
right.
you become them. Yep.
Yeah. So that's
Totally.
a sorority in a nutshell. But yeah, I just started asking questions and was really inspired by the answers. And um, they were very, I could see that like women were very respected, and women really valued themselves for things other than like men. Um, in fact, like the whole like physical aspect of being with a man was totally taken out of the picture, and that was very attractive to me. And it just made sense. I was like, oh, there is more to life,
Mhm.
so that's sort of how that started. And I went to my rabbi and I said, I'd really like to learn more about this stuff. And they were like shocked. They couldn't believe it. And they'd never pushed me. But I just started, showing up for Friday night dinner. And by senior year, I was staying at their house every Shabbos so that I didn't have to walk.
Oh.
Well, obviously there's no Eruv either.
Right.
But also I wasn't interested in walking alone on a college campus
Right.
at night.
Was there a part of you that still felt like torn? Like, I don't know if this is what I want, or I don't know if I want to become religious while I'm in college because of all the conflicts that come up?
So I didn't completely take on kashrus until I was finished, but I had an end point. Like I was not eating meat out, and I started eating like pretty much vegan out by senior year. But I had an end point. I said, when I go to Israel after college, like I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm sort of like a Nasa Vanishma kind of gal. Like I knew it was the right thing to do, and I sort of would catch up my like understanding of it later. But I have a lot of yira. So it was more important to me to take it on because I knew it was the right thing to do. So once I did that, it just sort of went from there. And listen, like it was hard. Like I did have friends who were boys, and it was hard because they just thought it was weird. And
totally, you changed your whole life.
It was totally just a change from who I used to be. Not even like giving them high fives or like a side hug or anything.
Right.
But it was okay. And my friends were pretty understanding. It's funny because junior year of college at Indiana, a lot of the juniors go abroad for their second semester, but I couldn't go abroad because otherwise I wouldn't graduate on time. But all of my friends went abroad. So I was pretty much alone and had to find a new friend group. And I grew a lot religiously while they were gone. And then they came back and I was like totally Shomer Shabbos. So it was like a little bit of a big change for them because when they left, I was one person. And when they came back, I was another person. I don't really know where I was going with that, but yeah, it was hard. But I knew it was the right thing to do. And I knew that after I left college, I would be able to grow even more. So
did anyone in that immediate friend group also become religious, or you were the only one?
It's just me. A lot of them were more culturally religious than I was when I met them. Like they were going to the Aish programming and I wouldn't go with them. So that was a little bit funny. And I think maybe a little bit hard at first for them. But like, oh, Alyssa thinks she knows more than us now, but I'm very close with them still.
I was going to ask you that next. Like, are you still close with that group?
Not everyone in that group, there were like 8 of us. But I'm still close with, how it happens. You lose touch with most people and then you stay in touch with a few, and I'm in touch with a few.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So where did you go in Israel?
So when I was in college on breaks, I went to EOT. Do you know what EOT?
No, I never heard of it.
So, well, Aish Torah is Rav Noach Weinberg Zatzal. Then his wife, Rebbetzin Dina Weinberg Shlita. Is that what you say for women too?
I have no idea.
Okay, whatever. Well,
I joke with my friend who grew up from, her name is Kelly Kravitz. I interviewed her also, or Kelly Gross or Ellie Sheva Gross or whatever. And she I don't know. I grew up from it. I don't know any, I never went to shul. I don't know the words. I don't know how it happened.
She deserves a Shlita, so I'm going to give it to her.
You give it to her. I have no idea. I grew up from, but I have no idea.
So she had her own seminary called EOT, and technically it was like the sister to Aish Torah, but it was nothing like Aish Torah. It was in Kiryat Sanz. It was stark, very small, very like hashkafa focused, very far to the right. And it was just what I needed. It was like, I call it the boot camp that I needed to be able to finish college. It's like I would go up so much when I was there, like my madrega, and then going back to Indiana, like because I had been so high, I wouldn't fall as much when I went back to college. And then after college, I needed a little more of a social place. So I went to Sharim in Harnof.
That's like, is that like connected to Neve or no?
No, so it's just no, it's not connected. It is like in the sense that it's one of like the Balei Tshuva seminaries, but no, it's not connected. It's much smaller than Neve.
I went to Neve one summer, like the summer after seminary, like not the summer right after seminary, the next year, and I like loved it. I was with so many people who like weren't religious yet, or
Yeah,
it was cool. And then I heard of that seminary, but I don't know where it was in Harno. I never went
so it
there.
was like, I mean, I don't know if you know Harnof, it was on Agassi, so
I
like
don't remember. It was so long ago.
most of the way up the mountain, but not all the way at the top like Neve.
Right.
So
So you went there for a year?
I was there for like 10 months. Yeah.
How are your parents feeling about this whole transition?
So my mother passed away when I was 9. So it's
Right,
just
I
me and
remember that. Yeah.
so it's just me and my dad. And he definitely thought it was just a phase until I got engaged. And he like came over to me and was like, "Are you sure about this?"
Do you have any siblings?
No, I'm an only
Just
child.
you and your dad
Yeah. And a dog.
and a dog. So
Uh,
wow. So he was okay with it. Sounds like let's say before you got engaged, up until that, he just thought like, okay, this is like an interesting phase.
yeah. I mean, like and since then, really, he has become much more religious himself. He puts on tefillin every day.
So nice.
He davens every day.
Wow.
I mean, in English, but like he davens every day.
That counts.
And he's very into it. And he's pretty respectful. So that's been good.
So at first, would you say he was like indifferent? Like he wasn't sure
Yeah, he
how to
didn't,
feel about it?
he definitely like made accommodations for me. Like he was okay buying separate dishes. I don't really ever remember a time of him like rolling his eyes, or being like, "Are you sure?" Or like, "This is so annoying."
Right.
I also like, as I was becoming more religious, was more lenient with him,
Right.
Having my husband on board. Now, if he needs something to be more strict, I just like let him tell my dad.
Right.
I don't have to worry about it,
Right. Right. I hope you don't mind me asking this, but do you like know how you think your mom would feel if she knew that you became religious or if she was still alive?
I don't mind you asking, and I'm not really sure. I don't think she would have been, I don't think she would have disowned me, but we're very close with her sister and my first cousins who are like 20 years older than me. I was like, it took my parents a very long time to have me, and my mom was older when she had me. But based on how my other side of the family handles things, I think that it would have been harder for her. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm so curious. Like, I don't even know. I guess it's something I would want to think about before I like going down that road. But like, I lost my mother also like, 3+ years ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And, I can't believe I forgot that you lost your mother. I knew that you lost your mother because you spoke about it on Impact Fashion's podcast a while ago. Right. But also I'm one of 9. I have 8 siblings. So, I'm the 4th. So I lost my mother when I was 27, but my brother was 16. My youngest brother was 16, So, yeah, like I can't imagine like my siblings were like my support system. You know what I mean? Like we had there.
So my friends became my support system. My dad still had to travel for work.
Wow.
And I became like a third sibling at my best friend's house. They were, this just shows like how far I've come, but like she just sent me a picture of a Christmas stocking with my name on it. She's like, "Do you remember this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember this."
Yeah, well, I guess it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like
I knew I was Jewish and they were very, very respectful, but I love the season. Yashka is not my reason for the season, but I love the season still. It's like one of the hardest things for me. and I still appreciate the lights to their
The lights are
fullest.
beautiful, I
The
have to
lights
say,
are beautiful.
especially if you grew up appreciating it or celebrating in any
Well,
way.
my dad and I also like had a game that we used to play. We would drive around and say, I see pretty lights. And I actually taught it to my children. And it's something that we like connect on now. We talk about it, we
Right.
talk about, the lights are very beautiful and we can enjoy them, but we're Jewish and we don't do that. And, I think there's a way to approach most things like that. But yeah, so yeah, so I was like my friends became my family essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I'm really sorry to hear that you lost your mother, especially at age 9. Like that must have been so hard.
thank you. I mean, I don't think it was hard until I became a mother.
Interesting.
Didn't hit me until I
Right.
became a mother myself, which is a long time for it to not hit you.
Well, it's like delayed grief, right? That's what they call it.
Yeah. I mean, like super delayed.
I'm sure you follow Sarah Crone.
Yeah. I
Am I
love
saying that
her.
wrong? Yeah, and I think she lost her mother when she was 9 also.
She did. She was young. And
Yeah.
I wish that
Link.
there had been something like that for me.
Right.
Lynx is an amazing organization.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Also, it happens to be my mother-in-law is I'm mentioning my in-laws a lot. Like I hope they watch this. My mother-in-law is an only child, and she lost her mother when she was, I think, 13 or 14.
Oh wow.
So like it's so funny. Like she's always like, I always wanted siblings. I always wanted, and I'm like, I had so many siblings. Like my life was chaotic, like as a kid, it was just like kids everywhere flying,
Right.
Everyone has a different experience.
Totally.
So when you came back from college, your dad wanted you to get a job just because like he felt like you should be like self-sufficient, or like that was like the culture in your home?
He just was like, I'd gone to Israel for a year now. I had been on many trips. I've been to Israel like 10 times. Like on these trips, and my dad was just like, it's time to come home and be an adult now.
Right.
Because that wasn't in our people in our family, just didn't do things like that, where we just like took years off in between,
college and working. And
yeah, so he was just like, it's time to come back and get a job. He said, I know you don't really want one,
right,
but you've got to get one. So
because
so
you weren't feeling pulled to anything really. It sounds like you were just exploring your life.
I said to my dad, like, okay, fine, I'll come home and get a job. But in my mind, I was like, okay, I'll get a job, but I'll also get married. So that was really like my next goal. But I told him, I'll get a job. And then thank God, 7 months later, I was engaged.
So did you come back to Kentucky?
No, I never went back to Kentucky full time. I went to Passaic because I was told you had to move to the tri-state area to find a nice Jewish boy to get married to.
Who told you that?
It did.
It's true, but
it did. I did need to be in Passaic, but only so someone at a Shabbos table could say, I know who you're going to marry. And then I dated my husband long distance. And we were engaged like 8 weeks later.
So your husband grew up from?
No, he's a Baal Tshuva also.
So you came to the tri-state area to date, but he wasn't living in the tri-state area.
No.
But you so you were working in NCSY in Passaic?
No, I was working for NCSY in Manhattan and commuting from Passaic.
And how did you end up in Passaic?
A lot of Sha'arim alumni live in Passaic, and I hear they are typically like a more open and welcoming community to Baalei Tshuva and like single girls. There are a lot of single girls that live in Passaic. So I boarded with a family,
So nice.
a Sha'arim alum and her family, who we're still close to. And I only lived there for 7 months because then I moved to Chicago, which is fine. Chicago is much more, closer to Kentucky than, both geographically and
culturally.
Culturally, that's the word for it.
So you moved to Passaic, you lived in this family, and then somebody at this house said they have someone for you?
No, a different Shabbos table.
Somebody else invited you and said, I know someone for you.
Yeah.
And your husband where did he grow up?
he grew up in Highland Park, Illinois, which is on the North Shore of, it's very close to where we live. Lots and lots of Jews there, but they're not religious.
So he has his own story. They
He
thought
has
of
a
him for you.
whole own separate story. Yeah.
Interesting. And then you guys, was he like one of your first guys that you dated or no?
I dated, I think, 7 people. I
Okay.
think.
Was that weird? Like shidduch dating versus
I liked it because
Oh, you're the only person I've ever heard say that.
see, I liked it because everybody was marriage minded. And, you know, I knew I wasn't going to get like taken advantage of, or, you know, my feelings weren't going to get hurt because like I felt stronger about someone than, you know, even though that can happen in shidduch dating, you're protected by so many fences that like, you don't really, if it's not going to work, I feel like you, and it's not mutual, I feel like you don't really have a chance to like fall in love with someone, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I had one person who I would have kept going, like I would have continued dating them, and they said no, and I was like a little confused, but I wasn't like in bed for days hysterical about it, you know?
Right.
I was just like, okay, it's not for me.
That's an interesting perspective, I think, for people to hear coming from, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so, heartbreak is real. And in the non-religious world, people, there are so many women who want to get married, but it's not like you talk about that before you go on your first date. So you could totally be dating someone for a long time and then like years, and then realize, or it comes up in conversation that they don't want to get married for like another 5 years, or they don't want to get married, or they don't want to have kids, or, you know, their political party, you know, their life views are so different from yours.
Right.
And then you've wasted all this time in your life because you want something and they don't.
Right.
And that causes so much heartbreak and depression. And it's just, it really gets you down. Like really, really gets you down. And listen, everything happens for a reason, but there's no reason to like waste time, precious time.
Right.
When you don't have to.
Right. I mean, that's the whole point of the shidduch system, right?
Exactly.
As much as we like to bash it and
like, listen, you don't have to, you know, some people think the point of the shidduch system is to, you know, just get 19-year-olds married and to produce like 14 children. But like, there's also like this whole emotional piece to it to protect us. And after living like both sides of both the shidduch system and not the shidduch system, you know, I definitely like had a boyfriend in college that I was like, yeah, we're going to get married. And we definitely weren't going to get married, you know,
right.
you know, there was just no way. There was just no way, but you get so caught up in it that you're like, of course, I love him.
Right.
And he does not love you, you know?
Right. I mean, my husband and I actually, we met when we were in high school. So I never did go through the shidduch system. So like, I think that I don't really know anything about it, only peripherally from like all my friends who have dated through the shidduch system and my siblings, like my sisters and brothers, because I'm one of 9 and 8 of us are married, you know? So like most of us went through the shidduch system. It's like, it's interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your perspective because you're right. There is a massive pro. Obviously, every system has flaws and cracks.
For sure.
There's a massive pro to the way that we do that for a reason.
And you know, listen, I'm very lucky. It worked for me.
Right.
There are a lot of older single Bali Tshuva women who the system is not working for them.
Right.
And it's really hard. And I have friends that are going through it and it's heartbreaking for me to watch. So I consider myself very, very fortunate. And if I had had some of the struggles that my friends have, I probably wouldn't have the same opinion on it.
Right. You had a very positive
I
experience.
had a very good experience with it. Yeah.
Did you kind of like know that your husband was the one when you met him?
He knew first, but I definitely knew after, like, he came to New Jersey and we dated 3 times that weekend. And then I went to Chicago. And after that Chicago trip, I was like, okay, I think I can marry this guy. And once I like make up my mind about something, I sort of make up my mind about it.
Was there like any culture shock for you or your dad about like the amount of time you guys dated and like engagement and until you get like it's so
Oh, my
short?
dad thought it was insane.
But he was supportive.
Yeah, he was supportive.
Wow.
I don't know. My dad and I don't really talk about these kind of things. We don't really like talk about emotions, which like that's a whole other conversation.
Which we could do a sequel, you know.
That's caused a whole slew of other problems for me in my life. But yeah, it just, he was just like, are you sure?
Right.
Are you sure? Because once you get married, like this is
like
the
you're
life
married, right?
Yeah.
Once you're married, right? Yeah.
Right. And like once you're married to an Orthodox Jew, like you have to be Orthodox.
Right. Right. And
So,
I understand, like I totally understand his hesitation. Like I really do think it's like your entire world changes once you become Orthodox, like in every aspect.
Right. But Adam's a good guy. That's my husband.
I'm sure he's
and
a great
guy.
guy.
My dad likes him more than me. So great.
I say the same thing about my husband and my mom.
Great. So everybody's happy.
Okay.
At my wedding, in front of all of these from people that like, you know, I'm trying to like move into their community and like be a part of them. At the wedding, my dad literally said in his speech, she's your problem now.
We could probably write a whole book on like what happened at the wedding and the cultural shock. Yes, I totally understand. You have to meet my friend Kelly because you guys would be friends. So anyways, we don't have so much time left, so we might really have to do a part 2, but I really want to know. So, okay. So one of the things I really want to interview about is that you're very passionate or that you're advocating for plus size from clothing, right?
Yeah.
So is that when you started the social media thing, you said it was a social outlet or it was a creative outlet. Did you see it going in that direction? Were you always passionate about that? How did that happen?
No, I dressed like a schlump for like after I had kids for like, I was cute before we got married. And then after I had kids, I dressed like a schlump for like 2.5 years. You know, as I started just like gaining weight, well, I had a baby, gained weight, then I didn't really have time to lose that weight and had another baby. My kids are 12 months apart.
Oh, wow.
And then since I had him, I've just sort of been like steadily gaining weight again.
You may have to have a story about the 12-month. I have to hear how people have kids 12 months apart.
I mean, Hashem gives you the gift and you just roll with it.
My sister and I are 12 months apart, so I always tell mom.
If you might notice, I haven't had any more children since then.
So wait, your oldest is how old?
My oldest is turning 6 next month.
Is that your daughter?
Yeah. And my baby, who is not a baby, but he is my baby, my son is turning 5.
Got it.
So we have taken a very long break. Well, we have put certain things into play to ensure that we have taken a very long break.
I got it.
It was a lot.
Yeah, you had like twins basically.
Yeah, but instead of doing it at the same time, you did it all over again.
Right.
And Miri was an angel, a perfect angel. She is the perfect specimen of a child. Listen, she's sassy and like throws some tantrums, but like she hits she hits the milestones. She's very smart. I don't have to worry about her. Then Ozzy comes along, my sweet Ozzy, and he can't eat properly. He can't hold his head up properly, right. You know, so he was in PT, OT, feeding therapy, and now he has diabetes, and now he's a celiac also.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard.
So listen, we just roll with it. But
Right.
yeah, that's why we only have 2 kids.
I mean, it's really a lot. It's really,
Yeah.
really a lot.
It's a whole lot.
Yeah. Okay. So you were saying that. So let me just backtrack for a second. Before you got married, before you had kids, did you feel good about your body? Have you been somebody you exude a lot of confidence? Have you always been very
Okay,
confident?
so listen, it's interesting you're asking me this because I talk a lot about plus size on people's podcasts, but I've never really talked about like before. So growing up, I was always told that, like, by family members, not my dad, that I needed to lose weight. So I always sort of had this complex that I weighed too much. Like from 4th grade on, I was like fat for a long time, fat. Didn't feel good in the things I bought. I was always buying like 8X, at Gap, they have like 8X, like for husky girls. But I was short also. So it was like, I had to buy the bigger things and get them hemmed. No, I never felt good about myself. I was always self-conscious in the things I wore. Right. Even up until I remember buying dresses for my Vort and like Sheva Brachos. And I just like was uncomfortable in them. And then as my body started to change, Miri took a toll on me. I was so swollen. I had to be pushed in a wheelchair from 25 weeks on. I couldn't walk. I'm telling you, my ankles were the size of my neck. Like, it was ridiculous. I don't really know what happened. It was sort of like I had both of the kids. I didn't really feel good about my body until I started this platform. And I say it a lot. Like, sometimes you just have to fake it till you make it. And I'm not saying I was lying, because I don't do that. If you know anything about me, I don't like BS things. But I just started, and it probably helps that I see myself in photos all the time. And I just started looking for cute clothes because I wanted to feel better about myself. I started putting makeup on every day because that helps me feel more put together. And there was just something that turned, and I decided that I didn't want to feel bad about myself anymore. And it wasn't the way to live. And I didn't want that for my daughter. I specifically said to the family member who like did that to me, I said, if you ever say anything to my daughter about weight or how she, like her body or anything, I will completely cut off your relationship with her, because I always want her to feel good in what she wears. And I always want her to feel good no matter what her body looks like. It is so important to me because it took such a toll on me. And I still struggle sometimes. Sometimes I'll go through 4 outfits in my closet that fit me perfectly fine until I feel comfortable. But I'm in such a better place now. I genuinely don't care what other people say. People ask me if I'm pregnant all the time, and I'm like, nope, just fat. And I'm so thankful that I'm in this place. Listen, there's a difference between being plus size and healthy and plus size and unhealthy. And I personally know, based on the way I feel, that I need to take a little bit better care of myself. And I do need to lose a few pounds so that I can feel healthier. But it's not because when I look in the mirror, I feel disgusting about myself. It's just like, I need to stop huffing and puffing, and I need to be able to bend over easier. You have to know yourself in that way.
Interesting, because so I'm a dietitian and I do intuitive eating, health at every size. Like, these are the things I talk about every day with clients, right? Like their journey, how, like, what the messages they got as a kid, being in a larger body is bad from 4th grade, right? Like, those are the messages you got. But it's interesting that your instinct was to say, like, okay, I'm gonna put on makeup, I'm gonna dress better instead of losing weight. Like that's what I say, because the whole model of intuitive eating and health at every size is focusing on healthy behaviors and not on weight, because weight's not a behavior. So
I
like,
definitely tried to, I did an exercise group for like a year and I felt good when I was exercising and I wasn't necessarily losing like tons of weight.
right.
But it's funny because in college, I was like a workoutaholic and I was very, very thin. And I was at a point in my life at one point where my thighs almost didn't touch. And I thought I was just like living the life. But you can be plus size and happy. It's just about being healthy also.
Right.
And that's either something that your blood tests at the doctor tell you, or like non-scale, non-victories tell you, I have a lot of non-scale victories that I would like to achieve now. It's not a number on the scale for me anymore, because I don't care if I'm in plus size clothes forever, because I know that I look good and I look beautiful in plus size clothing. It's about how I feel. It's those non-scale victories that I would like to achieve, for me, for my kids, for our family. Wow, that sounded really good. That was pretty motivating.
I'm not, what I want to like kind of like highlight or pull apart, especially for like like people who are listening, is like, most people who I speak to say like, I don't feel good, I need to lose weight. And you went a different route intuitively. Like, I don't have to necessarily lose weight to feel good. I could feel good at plus size, even if society says plus size is bad, right? Society. So there must have been, maybe like you didn't even realize, but maybe there was like, once you started doing that, it made you feel better. So you just were like, okay, this is working, let me keep doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think you have to be right to some extent. I wish I could pinpoint the exact thing that like made the click for me, the change. But I just don't care what other people say about me anymore. I just don't. I know that I'm beautiful. I hate it. I hate it. And I did a whole post about this when you say that you're plus size, or you say that like you have a few pounds to lose and someone else says, but you're so beautiful. I didn't say I wasn't. I hate it when people associate beauty with pounds. Like, I know I'm beautiful. I have a lot of confidence. I don't have.
So
I
maybe,
don't
so
know.
maybe you just, do you think you naturally have a lot of confidence, and the comments about your weight pulled you down to an extent, but really not?
I've changed. You should have seen me. I
You
was
just
a
gained confidence.
I
It's
was
just
a
one of the,
loser in high school, a total loser. People were so mean. I had like 3 friends. And I was a total loser. And I wasn't like overweight. It had nothing to do with my weight. I just like was not a cool girl. Part of college was a good time for me. And then I became this weird religious girl. I don't know. Something just happened. I was a cool girl in seminary. Maybe that was it. I don't know. It doesn't hurt that people look up to me now. Like, of course, that helps me feel good about myself,
right.
that I'm helping people. But I don't know. I've just grown into myself, and I could not be more grateful to be in this place for me personally. And also, I'll say it again and again, for my daughter, because the
Right.
confidence that I show is going to rub off on her. It does. I mean, have you
100%.
seen the girl walk
100%.
around?
I say that to clients all the time, because clients will ask me, let's say I'm working with them for their kid, I'm not working with them for them. And they'll say like, well, they're being bullied at school for their weight, so they have to lose weight, right? Like
Right.
that's the next step. And I'm like, well, how do you feel about their weight? And they're like, I'm really unhappy about their weight. And I'm like,
Right.
well, kids feel their sense of like self and confidence and groundedness and love and acceptance from their parents. And I'm
Right.
not blaming the parent. And I even just said this to mom, it's normal that you're fat phobic, because we're all a little fat phobic, because we live
Right.
in the world, and we could just validate that and not feel guilty and not push it away. However, I highly recommend you work on that, because if a child feels loved and accepted, no matter what, we have to accept a lot of things about our kids that we didn't expect, right? Nothing to do with their weight. A lot of kids, we just don't expect what we get. We don't pick
You
it.
got that right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the more we are able to say, like, this is my child, Hashem chose this child for me, I love them and accept them unconditionally, the more they feel that
Yeah.
groundedness. So it's true. You're 100% right in terms of your daughter. So maybe that was just like a motivating, like a highly motivating factor for you. Like, if I'm not going to make this right for me, I'm going to make this right for my daughter. And you just like did.
I think it's definitely part of it. I would, through therapy, I was able to realize that I was severely damaged by some of the things that happened in my childhood and were said to me. And I just didn't want that for her.
Right.
So
that just motivated you. So, okay. So I have to end here,
sure.
but maybe I'll come back on because I have so many other things I need to
I
like
would love to do a part 2.
pull apart. And you're an inspiration to me. I love what you post. I think so many people, it helps so many people. It helps my clients. It helps myself personally. Like my body's changed so much in the last few years, and having children and certain medications. And it's like, right, bodies change, and that can be beautiful in a different size. And it's just really important for people, for you, like you put a face to that. And it's really important.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for coming on. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Stay tuned for part 2, everyone.
Stay tuned. Yes.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
Sheila.
Sure.